You wake up when your body decides it is time. Without that email that arrived last night and that you still have not opened, you sit up, stretch, and ask yourself a single question. What do I do today? For 99% of human history, that was not a philosophical question. It was literally the only plan for the day. Every morning, for approximately 300,000 years, every human being who existed woke up without obligations, without a schedule, and without anyone waiting for them with a list of tasks. And what they did next looks nothing like your current life. Today, the modern human dedicates about 90,000 hours of their life to working. That is approximately 1/3 of all the hours you spend awake. 1/3 of your conscious existence handed over to a job. But during most of the history of our species, work, as we understand it today, simply did not exist. There were no contracts. There were no salaries. There was no boss. No salary scale to climb, nor a Monday meeting at 9 to survive. So, what exactly did they do all day? Let us start with what we know for sure. In 1963, the archaeologist Richard Lee conducted a study that would forever change our understanding of prehistoric life. Lee spent months tracking the daily activities of the Jew, Hawanzi people in Botswana, one of the few groups that still lived in a manner comparable to that of human hunter-gatherers. What he found was baffling. Adults dedicated approximately 2.5 days a week to getting food, about 17 hours in total. The rest of the time they did whatever they wanted. And here is the important part. This pattern is not a local anomaly. It appears everywhere anthropologists have looked. The Hedza in Tanzania, the Ashe in Paraguay, the Martu in Australia. Different continents, radically different environments. The same result, between 15 and 20 hours a week, dedicated to survival. To give you an idea, you probably work twice as much. Now, some of you might think, those are modern groups. How do we know that prehistoric humans lived the same way? The answer is in the bones. When archaeologists compare skeletons of prehistoric humans with those of the first agricultural populations, the difference is brutal. Farmers were shorter. Their bones show clear signs of nutritional deficiencies. Their teeth were full of cavities caused by diets rich in grains. They had arthritis in the spine from repetitive work and died younger. Their bones say, as clearly as a bone can say, that they did less repetitive physical work. Not more. But the most striking evidence comes from something that should not exist if survival were a constant struggle. In 1994, some explorers discovered the Chauvet cave in the south of France. Inside, there were paintings created approximately 30,000 years ago. Horses, lions, rhinoceroses depicted with perspective, shading, and movement. They were not clumsy scribbles. It was sophisticated art that required skill, planning, and above all, time. Someone spent hours, maybe days, inside a cave, by the light of a torch, painting animals on the wall. Not to survive, not to eat, to create something beautiful. In the Blombos Cave, in South Africa, archaeologists found pierced shell beads 100,000 years old, small holes drilled into seashells, clearly designed to be strung as jewelry. The nearest coast was 20 kilometers away. Someone walked 40 kilometers round trip just to collect shells, then spent hours piercing them with stone tools to have a necklace, because they wanted to look beautiful. For the record, 100,000 years later, we continue doing the same. Only now we buy it on the internet. In 2008, researchers found in Germany a 40,000-year-old flute carved from a vulture bone, 5 finger holes, perfectly spaced. Whoever made it understood music, understood pitch, and dedicated considerable time to building it, not to hunt, not to defend themselves, to make music. These are not isolated findings. In Europe, Africa, and Asia. Sites from more than 100,000 years ago are full of decorative objects, elaborate tools beyond what is necessary to survive, and pieces that demanded hours of work with no immediate benefit. This is what they did when they were not looking for food. They made beautiful things. Let us reconstruct a day. You wake up at dawn. Last night's fire is still alive with the embers still hot. Someone adds firewood. You eat what was left from yesterday. Meat, maybe fish. Perhaps some nuts and berries gathered the previous afternoon. Breakfast is social. People talk. The day is vaguely planned. Not because it has to be done, but because that is what humans do when they get together. Mid-morning, a small group goes out to hunt or gather. But here is the key. You do not go out every day. If the hunt was successful 2 days ago and there is stored food, maybe today you do not leave the camp. Maybe you spend the morning sharpening a spear, weaving a basket, or working an animal hide to soften it. This is not work in the modern sense. There is no clock. There is no supervisor. You do it because being competent matters, because skill generates respect, because doing things well is part of being human, even if no one acknowledges it in an annual performance review. If there is hunting, it is not the frantic chase you see in the movies. Humans are persistence hunters. We follow animals at a steady trot for hours until the animal overheats and collapses. We are the only species capable of doing it effectively because we can sweat and regulate our body temperature while running. Most animals cannot, so we exhaust them. The hunt can last between 3 and 6 hours, including the journey. Then the animal is brought to the camp and distributed among everyone. And by early afternoon, the productive part of the day is basically over. What happens next is what modern people find hardest to understand. People rest. They sit in the shade and chat. They play with the children. Make jewelry with shells, beads, or animal teeth. Carve designs on bones or stones. Take a nap without feeling guilty about it, which is something that we have clearly forgotten how to do. The anthropologist James Woodburn documented that among the Jew, Hawanzi, adults spend approximately 6 hours a day in what he called social time, without working, without sleeping, simply being with other people. Because in a world without money, without police, and without written contracts, your survival depends entirely on your relationships. If people do not appreciate you, they do not have to share food when you are hungry. So you invested enormous amounts of time in those bonds, not because it was productive, because it was the way humans remained human. Then the sun went down, and here is where something remarkable happened. In 2014, the anthropologist Polly Wiesner analyzed hundreds of hours of recordings of conversations among the Jew Hawanzi. During the day, the conversations were practical. Who had seen animal tracks and where? What plants were ready to gather? Complaints about someone who had not shared enough? The usual stuff. But at night, around the fire, 81% of the conversations changed, register, myths about how the world had started, stories of ancestors who did impossible things, jokes that made everyone laugh, adventures from distant places. Wiesner argued that this is where human culture was born, on the campfire, as the first late-night show in history, and they did not sleep like you either. Medieval historical records and sleep studies from the 90s confirm that before artificial light, humans slept in 2 phases. A first sleep of about 4 hours, then 1 of 2 hours of wakefulness in the dark, and then a second sleep of another 4 hours. That was a complete day between 4 and 6 hours securing food or making tools, 6 hours of social interaction, storytelling, play, 8 hours sleeping in 2 phases, and the rest resting, looking at the clouds, existing without needing to justify that existence through productivity. Then, approximately 10,000 years ago, something changed. Humans of the Fertile Crescent began to plant seeds and domesticate animals, and agriculture is, if you think about it, a perfect trap. Once you start cultivating, you can feed more people. More people means you need more food. More food means more agriculture. In a few generations, population skyrocketed, and there was no going back, because now there were too many mouths to survive by hunting and gathering. The skeletal evidence is undeniable. The first farmers worked harder, ate worse, and died younger than the hunter-gatherers who preceded them. But the population kept growing, and with larger populations came specialists, toolmakers, potters, weavers, inventors, then soldiers, priests, administrators, and finally jobs. The idea that your time belongs to someone else in exchange for resources. By the time we built cities, the original human lifestyle had disappeared, replaced by schedules, obligation, and the need to work most of your waking hours just to survive within the system that we ourselves created. Today, you dedicate 90,000 hours of your life to working. Your ancestors, significantly less, you sleep straight through and call waking up at 2 in the morning insomnia. They slept in 2 phases and used the middle hours to reflect. You pursue your whole life, an idea of success created by a society barely a few thousand years old. Still in beta muda. They woke up every morning already, free, with nothing to prove to anyone. They did not need to become successful. They already lived the life you try to reach when you retire. You make art if you find time after work. They made art because they had time. And that is what we humans do when no one steals our hours. We are not a different species. But we live in such a different way from how humans lived for 99% of our existence. How well we could be. We traded freedom for food security, leisure for population growth, time for productivity. And the most disturbing part of all is that we call it progress. And if this has made you think, there are more questions like this waiting for you on the channel. Questions that no one asks, because they seem obvious, and whose answers are not at all